Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my YouTube channel. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn. And today for you, I have a Bjorn's Mighty Thoughts video. Going to be talking a bit about the MCU in particular, kind of more or less the downfall, if you will. And I know people are going to get their underwear in a bunch about some of the stuff I want to say, but please bear with me till the end of the video so I can get all this information out there, my thoughts about it. And then if you want to, rib me or yell at me or whatever at the end, listen to everything I have to say so you know where I'm going with this. And I'm going to show you some Avengers gameplay here because, yeah, sure, why not? But the thing I'm going to cover is what's particularly got my thought and attention about this is recently I've been seeing a lot of stuff when it comes to SheHulk. I've actually been seeing a lot of people giving the show negative reviews, everything from the sound to the lighting to the CGI to just the story itself. And of course, there's a lot of people out there that are going, well, you just need to like the show because she's a woman. And, well, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works at all. Folks, it's... people are going to watch what they want to watch. They don't want political messages. They want good stories. If this is a political message, I don't know. I haven't personally watched She-Hulk. From what I've seen of the reviews, it doesn't look like a show that would interest me. Understand, I am a, per se, quote-unquote, diehard comic book fan. I still have a huge collection of comic books and graphic novels, and I still have a bunch of superhero games that I play on a fairly regular basis, not all the time. But I don't have anything against it. I kind of called it. I kind of called it 3 years ago now with Avengers Endgame, that when Avengers Endgame was over, there was nothing left to see. That you saw everything that you were going to see, and that the direction the MCU was going to go was not really going to be a very good one. Just to be honest, that I felt like at that point that the stories in general were starting to lack. The themes of the stories, they really were not bringing in any, I want to say, super interesting characters to the screen. With like phase 1, you had Thor, you had Hulk, you had Iron Man, and you had Captain America, and then, phase 2, they brought in some more characters. They also expanded the role of Black Widow some more, things of that nature. And by phase 3, it got to the point where it was honestly getting exhausting. Just the constant superhero stuff everywhere, games coming out, of course the comic books, they expanded the comic book lines. I could really continue, but it seemed like it got to the point where it seemed like to me there was a new movie coming out like every other month. It was probably more like every 3 to 4 months, but it just felt like every other month, especially when you throw in there the DCU, the DCEU, and you throw in there all the other side stuff that was being put out at the time, and it's even getting worse. It just keeps growing and growing and growing. I just seen ads for Samaritan again with Sylvester Stallone, and honestly, while I think it could be good, it's Sylvester Stallone, he's awesome, I really don't have an interest in seeing it. And even The Boys, once again, while it looks really freaking awesome, I'm at the point of, I'm exhausted. I don't want to see anymore. So I've reached the point of, it's got to be really freaking good, and even still, I might not see it. And this is where I'm going with this, folks. The comic book films are going the way of the Western. I want you to understand that in the 60s, Westerns was dominating cinema. You know, you had Western TV shows, you had Western radio serials, Western comics, Western books, Western graphic novels, Western film, etc. It just keeps going on and on and on. Western was everywhere. And probably the biggest star in Hollywood at the time was John Wayne. And you know, by the 1970s, the Western was getting pretty much to the point that it was dead. So I mean, it went from, you know, controlling cinema like an irrelevant bald celebrity controlling her simp husband to completely dead. Now understand, there were still more Westerns that would come out, and some of the best Westerns would actually come out after the rise of the Western, with stuff like The Outlaw Josie Wales, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and so on. So the spaghetti Western kept Westerns alive a little while longer, but they just did not dominate cinema like they were dominating cinema. And that being said, everything popular has a rise and fall. Pogs? Anybody? Nobody? Am I really that old that nobody remembers Pogs? Am I the last person to remember Pogs? Yeah, Pogs at one point in the 90s was really popular. Everybody had them. And who the hell talks about them anymore except for old guys out of nostalgia? I know, I just dated myself. But if you want some more, you know, more recent, because I'm old and shit and most people don't understand the Pogs reference, let's talk about fidget spinners. Remember when everybody was going nuts over those? Yeah, they're long gone, aren't they? Nobody really talks about them anymore. Man, that would have been a good time to get in on fidget spinners, though. Of course, then you would have wanted to get out the height of it, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, you know, that being said, you know, the comic book movie genre has really been growing and dominating since the 90s. You know, you start off with movies like Blade, you get Spider-Man in there, you get X-Men, and then you start getting the MCU stuff. So, I mean, yeah, comic books had a good run, and it had a good run for quite a while. Trying to remember, Iron Man, 2008, I think. I'm probably off on that. It's probably closer to 2005. So, I mean, that was quite a few years ago. Think about how many cell phones you've had since then. Or game systems, even. Some TVs. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you've probably gone through since Iron Man. And I mean, Iron Man really kicked off the MCU. And unfortunately, when it comes down to the MCU, they're getting to the less and less interesting characters. And it's very visible. You look at their sales records. Yeah, they're still doing pretty successful for now. But I've noticed with like the Disney Plus series, less and less people are talking about them. Hell, I don't have any friends talking about SheHulk. So it went from people talked up and down about how great Loki was to fewer people talked about WandaVision, and even fewer talked about the Falcon and Winter Soldier. Nobody talked about Hawkeye in my friends. I don't even know if any of my friends saw it. I'm sure some of them did, but probably not many. And once again, none of my personal friends are talking about SheHulk. So let's face it, folks. You want to go off about, oh, people are review bombing SheHulk because it's about a female character. No. It's just people are sick of seeing it. It doesn't have the magic that it once did. You go back and watch Iron Man. And understand, Iron Man was just great for its time. It still is a really good film. Really well done. And it didn't even have that much of a... I mean, it had a pretty good budget, but it didn't... it didn't have the major box office budget that you would actually expect for a movie of that quality. And it did really well. And that's pretty much all of like the first phase of the MCU. And as the movies would go, they would get bigger and bigger. And then I think up till that point, Marvel's Avengers itself had the biggest budget. And to me, that was the high point. That was like the very beginning of the high point of the MCU. But let's face it, by Age of Ultron, the MCU was starting to lose steam. Truth hurts, don't it? I mean, that's exactly what this is. The MCU has lost steam. It's lost popularity. You want to go, people are going off about this, that, and the other thing, but honestly, the quality isn't as good as it used to be. The stories aren't as good as they used to be. The action sequences aren't even as good as they used to be. It's just in general terms, the MCU is not as good as it used to be. And instead of going, oh, people are only reviewing bombing this because it's a female character like y'all did for Miss Marvel. And, of course, once again, you're claiming that for She-Hulk. The truth is, it's just weak. It's not entertaining material. And in all honesty, at the rate it's going, I would say there's probably another 3 to 5, 10 at most if they play their cards right, until the MCU stuff rides off into the sunset and we start forgetting about it. Because let's face it, Disney and the MCU has turned into a big box office cash cow, and they're trying to milk that cash cow for everything that it's worth, and they're starting to lack the quality. They're starting to cut the corners to get more and more MCU stuff out there. Which is really unfortunate for DC because, well, DC never really got its legs. And don't get me wrong, they've had a couple really successful ones. I mean, we had the Man of Steel. But, I mean, people weren't saying many good things about the Batman. So, yeah, it's not just because She-Hulk's a female character. There's good evidence just to say that, no, it's just because people are tired of it. Folks, for those of you who think people are review bombing She-Hulk because it's a female character, She-Hulk, unlike Miss Marvel, actually has a lot of fans in the comic community. So get over yourself. Anyway, folks, that's the end of my video. That's my 2 cents in the whole thing. I don't know what the hell you're still doing here. Get out of here, kid. You're cramping my style. And have yourself a wonderful day.